Your lease ends next month, my landlord Marcus said, sliding a new lease amendment across his desk like he was dealing cards in a high-stakes poker game. New terms, $4,200 a month, effective immediately. Or you can find somewhere cheaper. I'd been running my boutique fitness studio, Momentum, out of the same 2,400 square foot space in Denver's RiNo district for 5 years. I'd built the business from nothing, transformed the location into a thriving community hub, and had consistently paid Marcus his $3,000 monthly rent on time. Every single month. Never late. Never a problem. But Marcus had seen my success and decided that my loyalty was his opportunity to exploit. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd already started buying the building next door, and I was about to become his worst nightmare. My name is Sophia Brennan, and I'd spent the last 6 months quietly learning everything about Marcus's business, his finances, and his tenant structure. What I discovered was that his building, a historic converted warehouse with 5 commercial spaces, was profitable entirely because of the businesses I'd built that attracted customers to the area. 2 restaurants, a coffee shop, a yoga studio, and my fitness studio. We were the draw. We were the reason other properties in the area had appreciated. Marcus was a parasite who believed he deserved to profit infinitely from the success of the people renting from him. When he served me with the rent increase, I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I did something far more calculated. I smiled and asked him when he needed an answer. By end of business Friday, he said, clearly expecting me to panic and accept the new terms. I had 3 days to execute what I'd been preparing for over the past 6 months. I called my real estate agent, a woman named Patricia Torres, and told her I was ready to move forward with the purchase of the building next door. The building was currently for sale, a property that had been on the market for 8 months because the owner had passed away and the estate was in disarray. I'd been watching it, waiting for the right moment, and now was the moment. Patricia moved fast. She had the purchase agreement drafted by Thursday morning. I signed it that afternoon. By Friday morning, I'd secured financing through a commercial lender I'd been cultivating relationships with for years. The offer was submitted to the estate, who was desperate to sell and immediately accepted. That Friday, before close of business, I walked into Marcus's office. "I'm declining your lease renewal," I said. "Effective immediately, I'm no longer your tenant." Marcus's face flushed. "You can't just—" "I absolutely can," I interrupted. "My lease allows me to terminate with 30 days' notice. Consider this my notice. I'm moving my business." "You'll be in breach," Marcus said, his voice turning ugly. "You signed a commitment for another year." "I signed a commitment contingent on reasonable terms," I said. "A 40% rent increase is not reasonable. That's retaliatory. And it's illegal in Denver." Marcus's lawyer would later inform him that I was, in fact, correct. The rent increase was retaliatory. The law protected tenants against exactly this type of increase designed to force displacement, and his attempt to enforce it was not only unenforceable, but potentially exposed him to additional legal liability. But I wasn't done. "I've purchased the building next door," I said, "and I'm about to open a competitor to every single business you have renting from you. When I open Momentum 2.0 next door, with lower prices, better amenities, and a community that already trusts me, I'm going to take approximately 60% of your tenants. Your building will become significantly less valuable. And there's nothing you can do about it." Marcus stared at me. "You can't do that," he said finally. "That's unfair business practice." "It's called competition," I said. "Welcome to it. You've been operating a monopoly this entire time, charging whatever you want because businesses had no alternative. I'm creating that alternative." I walked out of his office and started executing. I closed on the building next door on a Monday. It was smaller than Marcus's building, 2,000 square feet instead of his 5,000, and only 1 commercial space instead of 5. But that was perfect for what I needed to do. I immediately launched a major renovation. I designed the space to be superior to what Marcus's competitors had: newer equipment, better lighting, a juice bar that the yoga studio Marcus didn't have, and most importantly, I priced my membership at 30% less than what Marcus's competitors charged. I also did something that Marcus hadn't. I created a referral program. Any customer of Marcus's businesses who switched to my studio got 3 months free. I advertised this directly to the area. I created social media campaigns targeting his customers. I sent mailers to his building's tenants. Within 2 weeks, I had 60% of the yoga studio's members transfer to my new space. The coffee shop across the street noticed significant traffic loss as customers chose my studio's juice bar instead. A restaurant tenant that shared Marcus's building complained that their foot traffic had declined. Marcus called me furious. "You're destroying my property values," he said. "I'm competing fairly," I replied. "You set the terms when you tried to exploit me. I'm just responding appropriately." What Marcus didn't understand was that this was only the beginning of what I had planned. I'd spent enough time in his building to understand his financial structure. He had high carrying costs, significant debt on the property, and relied on full occupancy to maintain profitability. My competitive presence didn't just cost him rent. It cost him his entire business model. Within 3 months, the yoga studio gave notice. They were moving to my building as an anchor tenant. I was paying them to move, actually, offering them rent-free space for 6 months while they transitioned. It was worth it. The restaurant tenant lasted 4 months before realizing that the foot traffic decline was directly tied to the yoga studio leaving. They negotiated with Marcus and eventually broke their lease. Marcus couldn't afford litigation, so he let them go. The coffee shop held out longer, but by month 6, they too had left. I'd created a community at my location that was superior to what Marcus was offering. Customers didn't have a reason to go to his building anymore. Marcus was left with 3 commercial spaces and only 1 tenant, a printer who had a long-term lease and kept to themselves. His building's value had declined precipitously. His income had dropped by 70%. His carrying costs remained the same. He called me again, this time his voice different. Not angry. Desperate. "Let's talk," he said. "I think we can work something out." "There's nothing to work out," I said. "You tried to exploit me." I responded. "This is the market correcting itself." But then I did something unexpected. I offered him a deal. "I'll buy your building," I said. "At fair market value, adjusted for the current economic reality you've created. I'll pay cash. Closing in 30 days. You walk away with enough money to retire or start fresh somewhere else." Marcus wanted to refuse. I could hear it in his silence. But he also understood that he had no leverage anymore. His building was failing. His income was collapsing. His future looked bleak. "How much?" he asked finally. I named a figure that was approximately 40% less than the building had been worth when he was threatening to raise my rent. It was fair given the current market reality. But it was also the price of his poor decisions. He accepted. I closed on Marcus's building 3 weeks later. I now own both buildings. The original one where I was running my fitness studio, and Marcus's building with its 4 remaining commercial spaces, and the struggling printer tenant. What I did next surprised a lot of people. I dropped my prices even further, but I also reached out to Marcus's remaining tenants and offered them significantly reduced rent, better maintenance, and a responsive landlord. The printer tenant decided to stay. The 3 empty commercial spaces I renovated and rented to businesses that complemented my fitness studio: a physical therapy clinic, a nutritionist office, and a healthy meal prep company. All at prices that were approximately 20% below market rate in the area. My new building became a destination. People came for my fitness studio and discovered the complementary services. The whole block revitalized. The surrounding properties' values increased. The area became even more desirable. And Marcus? He disappeared from Denver's real estate scene entirely. I heard later that he'd moved to Arizona and was working as a property manager for someone else's buildings. He'd gone from being a landlord with significant holdings to being an employee managing properties for minimal compensation. What interested me most was a phone call I received 6 months after closing on his building. It was Marcus. "I need to tell you something," he said. His voice was quiet, tired. "I've been thinking about what I did to you. How I treated you. How I tried to exploit your success. I was wrong. And I'm sorry." I listened to him apologize. I heard genuine regret in his voice. But I also understood something important. His regret was because he'd faced consequences, not because he'd recognized the moral dimension of his behavior beforehand. "I appreciate the apology," I said. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not forgiving you because you apologized. I'm acknowledging that you've learned a lesson. And that lesson is that people eventually respond when you exploit them. Sometimes that response is legal. Sometimes it's business competition. But it always comes." I didn't stay in touch with Marcus after that call. But I did think about what his situation represented. A perfect example of what happens when people abuse power without understanding that the people below them can eventually acquire the power to push back. Over the next 2 years, I expanded momentum significantly. I opened 2 additional locations in Denver, each one designed to be the destination fitness experience in their neighborhoods. I also became a mentor to other business owners and entrepreneurs who were struggling with predatory landlords. I helped them understand their options. Some of them fight in court. Some of them break leases and accept the legal consequences. And some of them, the ones who are willing to think long-term, do what I did. They build leverage and then use it to transform the power dynamic. The boutique fitness industry is competitive, but what I discovered is that community loyalty is worth more than location advantage. People don't rent spaces from landlords, they rent spaces to build something. And if you're building something that serves people, they'll follow you, even if you have to move next door to do it. Marcus tried to treat me as if my success was his to exploit. He treated my loyalty as weakness. He treated his position as permanent leverage over my business. He was wrong on all counts. What I learned is that true power doesn't come from controlling the physical spaces where business happens. It comes from understanding the market, reading people, and being willing to execute on opportunity when it presents itself. Marcus had physical property. I had intelligence, capital, and the willingness to use both strategically. The building next door wasn't just a business acquisition. It was my response to someone who tried to exploit my labor and my success. It was me demonstrating that I understood the real estate market better than someone who'd been in it for 30 years. And it was me showing that when you push loyal people too far, they don't just leave. They return with leverage. That 40% rent increase was supposed to force me out. Instead, it forced Marcus out. And sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen for the market to correct itself.